We trace our family lineage to Gaza to before 1062. My family is also from the north of the Strip, more specifically from Gaza City. Both my mother and father were born in Gaza. However, I've never been to Gaza because I don't have the permits that Israel recognizes. Even though I've been torn away from my heritage, I grew up hearing only the best of Gaza. As my family sits to eat breakfast, my parents would mention that the oranges I peel would never be like the ones we get from Gaza, the lemons we use in our salads, the figs we pick from our trees, the olive oil we add to our za'atar would never be like the ones from Gaza. They tell me nothing compares to sitting on Gaza's beaches with a cup of chai, surrounded by family, as you watch the sunset. While my parents were both present for numerous aggressions in Gaza, they rarely brought up what it was like to live through them. They mentioned some things, but whenever we discussed Gaza, they often talked about its beauty, our family, our land, our homes, our history, our people, and what it was going to look like when we go back and I finally get to step onto the land of my ancestors. Growing up, I went to school with people who looked at me with confusion whenever I mentioned the word Gaza or Palestine. It was only during the conversations with my parents that I learned what it meant to be Palestinian. I relied on their stories from Gaza to solidify my Palestinian identity, and I had a lot to be proud of. Gaza and its people sounded beautiful, and as I lived in a world that didn't acknowledge Palestinians, it made me more determined to change that. I always cherished these conversations. I wanted desperately to know everything about Gaza because I longed to go to Gaza. I wanted to be prepared for the day that I went. I want to be able to appreciate it the way my parents still do, despite having been cut off from it for decades. Over the past almost 8 months, 234 days, I have seen more of Gaza than I ever could have known. The north of the Strip was seized, and while some of my family remains in the north, those who have evacuated to the south are internally displaced. Over the past 234 days, they were forced to move from hospital to hospital, to live and sleep in terrible conditions, with limited access to proper food and water, and with limited telecommunications, meaning we can barely even stay in touch enough to know where they are, how they're doing, or even if they are still alive. In January, my second cousin was martyred while courageously trying to restore the phone and internet services in Gaza. He was killed in an Israeli airstrike, trying to perform a vital duty to his community. He leaves behind 4 children who are now forced to grow up without their father. I don't bring him up for your pity or condolences. When I think about my cousin, I think about the tremendous strength and the pure resilience of the Palestinian people. After over 230 days of genocide, and after risking so much, he risked his life again to help his community, and he was murdered for it. These are the Gazan people. They are the brave men who dig tirelessly through the rubble, using just their hands and risking their safety to find their loved ones. They are the strong women who continue to find ways to keep their families afloat and their children's innocence alive. They are the children of Gaza who go off looking for food and water to bring back, who pray for the genocide to end so they can go back to learning at school and playing with their friends. These are the Gazan people who in the face of great adversity, carry on under the most dire of conditions with more courage than any of us can fathom. It has been during the last 7 months, throughout all this death and destruction, reckoning with the fact that my family businesses in our ancestral homes in the north have been destroyed, that I came across social media posts from strangers announcing the deaths of my family members before I can hear it from my own family, listening to my dad tell me that all he wants to do is go and stay in the tents in the south just so he can be with his people, and coming to terms with the fact that I will never see Gaza the way that my parents knew it. It is within these last 7 months of witnessing the strength of the Gazan people that I remember that these are the people that my parents always mentioned in our conversations. Gaza's people, who understand loss, who understand struggle, but remain steadfast until the end. It is from them that I am reminded of what makes me proud to be Gazan, a Gazawiya, to be Palestinian. Now, when I mention that my family is from Gaza, I don't get these looks of confusion. Instead, I get looks of pity followed by silence. I don't want that. I don't need to hear you say, I'm so sorry. I don't need to hear you explain that you can't believe this is happening. I know these are meant in good faith, but this is not the way that Gazans deserve to be remembered. Gazans need us to act, to get on the streets, to demand from our institutions like we are right now during this encampment, to end its complicity and accept our demands to disclose, divest, and to cut ties with Israeli academic institutions complicit in genocide. I will never undergo the strife my family in Gaza is experiencing. But as a Ghazawiya, the very least I can do is set up a tent. Gazans want you to witness their experiences, recognize their strength and humanity, and to stop overlooking them. They are surviving against all else. The very least we should do is know who we are. Ultimately, Gaza deserves to be known the way that I was taught. It deserves to be known for its oranges, for its figs, its olives, its beaches, its beauty, and for its people. There is an immense sense of pride that I get to say that I'm Ghazawiya and I come from some of the most resilient people in the world. Thank you.